Welcome to the beautiful city of Athens, the gateway to the Tennessee Valley, a city rooted in deep community relationships and built on a rich tradition of small local business and the very best of the human spirit. As Athens embraces the future, the signs of progress are in full bloom. Join us as we discover the bright spots in this charming southern city that we call home. This is Hometown Heartbeat, Athens. What's going on, everybody? Zach Walker here with magic number 60, Hometown Heartbeat, magic number 60. I am here with my two favorite producers, Connor Higgins and Alexander Jamilton.
Favorite by default, I take it.
By the way, because his phone is hooked up here for the call now graphic, and for that graphic, he has to get Bluetooth, right? And so I went to check the Bluetooth setting, and his phone's name is Sir Alexander Jamilton. God, it's hard to say. You want to get Alex that J just wants to permeate. But what's going on, fellas?
Not much. Sitting here getting ready for the radio, which I don't know if you can officially announce yet.
No, I mean, I think we're just waiting on a contract from them at this point. So we've been talking about it for 3 weeks. That's what happens when you prematurely announce something, apparently, is that you get to wait a long time. But anyways, so what'd you guys do this weekend? Anything fun? He swam. Sounds like a blast. What about you, Connor?
I don't even remember what I did this weekend.
Doesn't know what he did this weekend. All right, folks. Well, let me tell you, they're ready to help me on the solo show on a Monday. They are here to party. Amanda Tibbetts joining, Tiffany Sanders joining. How are you guys doing today? Drop us a comment. We're going to kind of take on some of the weekend headlines. But we also would want you to call in if you want to call in. So, Connor, go ahead and roll the graphics and make sure everybody knows we're
numbers on the screen now.
Numbers on the screen now. Okay, so there's one headline that I will not be taking on today, and that's the Atlanta shooting, and it's the thing with the drive-through and the body cam just came out and this, that, and the other. And the reason we won't take it on today is not because we're not going to take it on, but because I refuse to take it on until I have some more information in regard to what happened. We don't want to be reckless. Certainly, just right out of the gate, it does appear as though the gentleman stole a taser, which is a weapon, attempted to use it upon the police, and was then dealt with in a probably a fair way. Now, not that anyone should ever lose their life by any stretch. Obviously, there's a lot of information that needs to come out beforehand, but it certainly doesn't look anything like the other killings that we've had that have started to set the world on fire, for lack of a better term. So, with that, Connor, I will pass it to you, and let's see where we land.
All right. Here's a good coronavirus story. Haven't had one of these in a while. As maskless New Yorkers crowd outside bars, Cuomo threatens to shut the city back down.
Next, no, I'm kidding. Okay, so let me get to the link here. First of all, so I saw some statistics yesterday. In the state of Alabama, now again, we're not New York, okay, and I know that, but in the state of Alabama, you're twice as likely to be hit by a car as you are to catch the coronavirus. I mean, just a regular car accident. Out of the three of us, so you guys are both younger drivers, but have you had a fender bender or car accident yet?
I have not.
Connor, it doesn't surprise me. Davis also doesn't surprise me. Davis has, Connor hasn't. Davis is like my spirit animal. He and I have both been in multiple accidents, or I've been in multiple accidents, but I'm also 33. So I'm not talking about a fatal accident. I'm not talking about like a total your car accident, although I've been two of those. We're talking about just an accident. And so the reality of coronavirus is very different than what it was once portrayed. Now, that being said, it wasn't wrong. We didn't react incorrectly. I mean, we were scared of something that was unknown, and we didn't act incorrectly. But now that we're here, like, for those of you that said from the very beginning, don't reopen the states, while I would vehemently disagree with you, I would also understand your outrage at this particular kind of story, because there's a lot of them going on. If we don't have the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone with its, do you have the Warlord link pulled up? Google Raz the Warlord. We'll talk about. I want you to bring that one up. But back to the New York thing. I mean, it's, what did you think was going to happen, you dummy? First of all, Cuomo may be the biggest idiot in the country. Just to be clear, for those of you that don't know where I stand on him and the mayor are about worthless up there. It's like Commeyville. And so it's not popular. Nobody wants to go on a sidewalk with people drinking, say you can't drink on the sidewalk. Cuomo said, it's more. So here's what they've threatened to do in certain areas is like pull the liquor license for the bars. Like what? If that were to happen, that would be the most egregious. That'd be the most egregious like overreach of power in the history of power, because anyways, that's like the Gestapo coming after people that, I read an article today about what Nazi Germany did when they first began the Nazi party and the socialist movement. He basically defunded the police. He put a certain man, and I forgot his name, put him in charge of the brown shirts, is what they were called, I guess. And their entire mission existed to riot, loot, pillage, plunder, and beat people until they agreed with the socialist movement. And I don't know, I can't hardly read that without getting a little bit nervous about where we're at today. Not trying to make a comparison to Nazi Germany and the United States by any stretch, but for you to not understand the significance of where we're at and where they were at is to be ignorant. And nobody wants to be ignorant, although seems to be a bunch of them in Seattle. All right, what do you got next?
Yeah, okay. This is a new one for me. The Warlord.
You don't know about the homie Raz out there?
I didn't. I knew about the whole the autonomous zone. I did not know about him.
Yeah, so Raz the Warlord. Raz he's a rapper, okay, and he has declared himself the warlord of the Chaz, which, for those of you who know who Chaz Bono is, I probably would have picked a different 4 letters to symbolize my movement. But this gentleman is a warlord, self-declared warlord. He is the judge, the jury, the executioner. He is extorting people for money. He's walking around the streets with armed patrols and is really more or less just a terrorist. Look, what's happening in Seattle is nothing short of an insurrection. It's tyranny against the United States. And although the optics may not be good for the president to send armed Americans in to combat armed Americans, he's going to have no choice. You cannot allow an insurrection or a tyranny, a moment of tyranny in one of the largest cities in the country to define. I mean, look, Mr. President, the optics are bad for you no matter what you do, because you have a media and a party that is so vehemently against you that you are not going to win. So how do you want to go down? You want to go down as the president that let one of the largest cities in the country fall into the hands of domestic terrorists and tyrannical radical anarchist, or do you want to be the one that quelled the Red Dawn uprising? Because that's what it's turning into. This guy's freaking, it's unbelievable. I mean, this guy's unbelievable. For the love of God, he wants to abolish cops so Raz the Warlord can run around and be the warlord. It's like they're in freaking Somalia. Like where it's like Black Hawk Down and the Rangers are running in and there's a warlord named Raz are you kidding me? This is America 2020. We're talking about Raz the flippin' warlord. Like, this is a freaking joke. Sorry, Connor. What do you got next, buddy?
Similar note.
Good. Just keep them coming.
More protesters that are attempting to replicate the success, which I would use that term loosely, of the Chaz, and police dismantled an autonomous zone in Asheville, North Carolina. There's a video. Here it is. I wonder if I can see if we can get this to play. It's just them dismantling it piece by piece. Let's go down for a little while. They're just taking it down.
Yeah, we see your autonomous zone and we raise you police force. Look, here's the I read one about, I think it was Nashville maybe, where Nashville threatened to the Antifa movement there, like, is going to organize a Middle Tennessee autonomous zone or whatever. And the governor was like, I would very much recommend against you doing that, because we will not be cowardly and it's you in the South, homie. Like, you think that if you think that down here in the middle of the Bible Belt, like, we are the buckle of the Bible Belt, okay, and we are armed, we are very well armed, we're very well trained, and it's probably not going to go so well. Like, the reason we go to Seattle is because it's a gun-free zone, and terrorists, which is what they are, choose to pick on easy targets of opportunity. Have you ever watched any of the Discovery Channel movies? Like, we've all seen them, right? Like The Wild, Born in the Wild. I don't know, name one. Like the Life of the Lizard. Who cares? Any of the Discovery movies where you've got the wild, the prey and the predator, right? The predator and the prey. Do you see the predator attack other predators? Well, no, because they can defend themselves. Why do they attack the prey? Because they can, and it's easy, and they can eat them. And that's exactly what's happening right here. You have predator and prey. You have willingness and honestly enablement by a city government to allow an anarchist group. And that's what this is. Let me be very clear. The difference in activism and anarchy, okay? Activism and anarchy. Activism, we all participate in. And if you don't, you need to, because you need to have something in your life you're passionate enough about that you'll stand up and be accountable for it. But anarchy, on the other hand, is domestic terrorism. It is the very process of creating chaos so that you can overthrow a government or overthrow a regime or attempt a coup or honestly, your desire is to beat the people into a submission so that your agenda can be advanced through. That's anarchy, and that's exactly what's happening in Seattle. And like Connor said, they're starting to talk about doing it in other places. I wish you would in the Southeast. Ooh, I wish you would. Come down here, and I promise you there's a bunch of rednecks with pickups and guns that are not going to allow that to happen. Now, am I saying that's right or wrong? I'm not going to sit here and say yes or no. I would have to say, what would Jesus do about it? And I don't know the answer to that question. But if we're just talking about strategically, like if I'm Antifa, all right, can you guys imagine for a minute that I'm a member of Antifa? I want to put you in that fantasy land. Can you imagine that fantasy land?
No.
Okay, that was a long pause for a single word. Okay, so let's everybody close your eyes for a moment. Here I am, the big bearded warrior of Antifa. Okay, and I probably only ride a skateboard and live in my mom's basement. And I haven't had a job since I was 21. And I'm 32 now, still living at home in my mom's basement with a skateboard. And I'm like, man, that would be really cool if I could get free everything from the government, even though they can't afford it, and it will all go away, and society as we know it will collapse around me. This sure looks like a lot of fun. And I run out and I say, okay, where am I going to go attack? I'm Antifa. Rawr, hear me roar. Let's go to Alabama. Probably not. Let's go to Texas. Let's go to Seattle. Yeah. Like, let's step in the Northeast or the Northwest. Yeah. Like, this is unbelievable. The fact that this has been allowed to go on, like, I understand some of the monument stuff. Do I like it? No. I mean, look, here's the problem with whitewashing history or wiping history. Oh, that's right, Jeremy, well played. And I wet my bed. If I'm an Antifa, I probably wet my bed. My 4-year-old doesn't wet his bed, but Antifa does. And no, but here's the problem with whitewashing history, okay? When you whitewash history is the only thing that serves as a barrier between preventing the same as a barrier between society and the same mistakes that were previously made. If we didn't know what led to the downfall of Germany to Hitler, we wouldn't know how to stop it again. If we didn't know that a genocidal maniac is going to, under the guise of socialism, destroy the population of Jews across the world, then it would be more than likely that it could happen again. Because look, at the beginning, and again, a lot of parallels here between Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler was an incredible politician. Don't let that fool you. Like, he wasn't the genocidal maniac that he proved himself to be when he started. Now, the desire was probably in his heart, sure, but he was really, really well spoken. He was charismatic. He had a huge following, and it was all based in socialism. And so when we take down these monuments, when we take down everything, we whitewash history. All we're doing is erasing our ability to understand what happened and prevent it from happening again. And so, I think that we are at a pivotal time in our country. I think that the president is going to do what he needs to do. I still think he gets elected in November. I'm not sure. I would have told you 3 months ago it was a no-brainer. 4 months ago it was a no-brainer. Certainly some opportunities have arisen for the other side to play their cards, and if they play them well, and I'm hoping that the vice president nomination will pretty much seal Sleepy Joe's fate. But I mean, look, can we be honest about that for a minute? Like, we've all had somebody in our lives suffering from dementia or Alzheimer's or early onset or something. Like, can we not call that what it is? Like, I mean, God bless his soul. Like, I hope that he knows Jesus, and I hope that when he does go on in, like he's met at the gates and well done, thy good and faithful servant is the first thing he hears. Now, whether or not that'll happen, I don't know. I don't know the man's heart, but I do know. Dang it, he's got some kind of problem. Like, there's a health problem. I mean, Connor, have you ever had a grandma or anything like that? I mean, I know it's painful, but have you seen dementia or Alzheimer's in somebody like presenting, or are you too young to have seen that?
I have not. Not anybody that I know very well. I don't know about you. No, neither
It's
of us.
I mean, it's the most unbelievable thing when your grandma or grandpa or whoever it was, like you know, used to be their favorite grandkid, and now all of a sudden they forget your name, and it's this terrible process to watch a loved one go through. And I feel like for the Democratic Party, like, what are you doing to this man? Like, first of all, you lock him in his basement for 6 months in coronavirus, don't let him out. Probably the smartest thing you've ever did. But now that he's back out, like, I don't know. Anyways, that was a hard right. I mean, we kept going. It was like a NASCAR race. It was a constant left-hand turn, just a gradual arc. What do you got?
Well, while we're talking about VP, more than 100 liberal activists are urging Joe Biden to pick Elizabeth Warren.
Oh, Pocahontas Warren.
As VP.
You know what? I 100% support that. I think that would be a fantastic play and would do nothing but cement Donald Trump's victory, which, again, for those of you that don't watch the show or listen to the podcast very often, I'm not a Trumper, okay? I think he's a buffoon. I think he makes terrible, terrible decisions in a lot of areas in his life and in his presidency. But that being said, there was no other candidate that would have done a better job, and he's certainly done well in the areas that matter to me. I wish he was a little more conservative in certain areas. He's definitely a moderate, and so, for the left, they should be freaking rejoicing right now because they've got an opportunity to make headway with anyways, crossing the aisle doesn't exist anymore. Elizabeth Warren is an idiot. I mean, she is. Oh, you talking about old Pocahontas? Have you read that story, right, Connor?
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty well documented there. I mean, that's what was the news anchor's name that claimed he was on an Iraq helicopter that got shot down?
Dan Rather was, or Brian Williams.
There it is. How about Brian Williams and Elizabeth Warren for president in 2020? I think that would be a heck of a ticket. Look, here's the thing. My vote doesn't matter in November. If I'm being honest with you, I live in Alabama. It's going to happen. Now, my vote does matter when it comes to senators and local politics because, as we've previously demonstrated, when we put shirtless Roy Moore riding his horse up there, we allow our state to elect, funky fresh Dougie Fresh Jones to the Senate. And so this year we have a really big runoff going on right now between Tuberville and Sessions, right?
We do. Do you want to comment on that?
Yeah. I mean, I've had Tuberville in the studio before, and Tuberville seems like a good man. And he seems like an honest man. He seems like, we know what Sessions has done. Sessions is exactly what's wrong with politics. Now, I think Jeff Sessions is probably a decent man and a good human being, but I do not like career politicians. I never have. I never will. If your job, like, all right, firefighters, for instance, they're public servants. Police are public servants, although they're being destroyed right now. But anyways, your public services are positions where it's a call. Like, it's something God puts on you, and you go and do it for a season and then go back to what you're doing. You don't build a career out of it. You don't stay there forever. And the fact that, if we could get away from career politicians, you would see a totally different world. And I think that's probably why the left hates Donald Trump so bad, is because he doesn't play the games like he's supposed to. And then they would call that unpresidential. I would call that like New York cab driver. Like, that's how he speaks to people. But in our case down here in Alabama, like, Tommy Tuberville he's proven to be successful in a lot of arenas in life. Is that going to make him a successful politician? No, but he doesn't have a track record of being a politician. And I would be willing to bet you this. There's no politician that's been in politics for over fill in the blank. And I don't know what that number is. That magic number is what we need to determine. But if you've been in politics for X, Y, Z long, whatever that variable is, I would be willing to say on an almost 100% basis, it is physically impossible that you have gone that long without being corrupted or bought or owned or whatever, because lobbies, PACs, all that stuff. I mean, the funding that goes into politics is part of our biggest issue. But I would say that in that race, like Tuberville would be my pick. One, because I sat in my other studio on the square, looked him in the eyes, and had a conversation with him when he first declared, and he seemed very honest and open and willing. And I obviously had to ask him if he thought any Alabama fan would vote for an ex-Auburn coach, and he addressed that very well. And I just believe him to be someone who is truly being obedient in his call. He doesn't need the money. It's not about that. He doesn't need any of that. Like he's a successful man in private business and private whatever. And so it's a matter of like, I don't know that anybody wants to be if you want to be a politician, you're the problem. You're a narcissist at a minimum. But yeah, I probably just offended everybody. But it's true. Like I don't understand anything fun about politics. Like, I don't even like talking about it, but it's one of those things where we have to, because people are too silent on these issues right now. Listen, if you want to call in, now's your opportunity. It is a solo show. I'd love to have somebody call in. 678 on radio. He is standing by. Alexander Jamilton is standing. I had to look over here and see it. Now I kind of fumbled couldn't get the landing gear down. You know what I'm saying? Couldn't get it down. All right, what else do you got?
Here's something I was reading. I thought this was interesting. Justices Thomas and Kavanaugh, obviously Supreme Court's in the news. They are lamenting the decade-long failure to protect the Second Amendment. Basically, there are several cases that have been on the Supreme Court's desk that they have declined to read, declined to take under the wing and make huge precedent-setting decisions. And there's a quote on here. Let me see if I can find it. Rather than prolonging our decade-long failure to protect the Second Amendment, I would grant this petition, said, I think, Clarence Thomas. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Come on. Let's do it. I mean, look, for those of you that don't understand the Second Amendment, just look at Seattle, okay? Because in a world where let's address a couple of things. You got Seattle, you got Chicago, you've got gun-free zone after gun-free zone experiencing more gun violence after more gun violence. And so my question would be this. Look, I'm a pro 2A guy. I've got lots and lots of firearms. Typically, you won't catch me without at least one on my person, if not two. And I'm okay with some common sense gun reform. I'm okay with making it a little harder for whack jobs to get guns. I'm okay for whatever, fill in the blank. Maybe, because again, there are other things in my life. I say this all the time. There are other things in my life that are important to me that I feel like as a Republican or a conservative, I'm not a Republican. I hate party politics. I'm a constitutionally conservative. But I'm willing to give you a little bit of this to get me a little bit of that. And so the gun laws are something I'm willing to give a little bit on because I think there's some room there. But no, I mean, if you have any questions about the Second Amendment, just talk to the people that live in Seattle. Talk to the business owners who can no longer conduct business because Raz the warlord, by the way, with a gun, is walking around in a gun-free zone declaring himself the warlord over Seattle, Washington. Like, did you ever in a million years imagine we'd be sitting here in 2020 and we'd be talking about one of the largest cities in America as if it was Somalia? Raz the warlord struts around with his gold-plated AK-47s, and how? It's gun-free. Seattle, we don't have guns here. How did Raz get a gun? So if you have any questions about the Second Amendment, I think the one thing that's happened now is that the left has created for themselves a really tough conversation to go back the other way now because – what was that?
I have no idea.
That was a really loud noise. Because it's now really difficult to go back and take away guns after we've seen the devastation and damage that's been done in cities all over the country. So, yeah, you know what, justices, do your job. Protect the Second Amendment. Speaking of the Supreme Court.
Yes. You want to cover the big story
yeah,
of the
yeah,
day?
yeah, yeah.
All right, let me hang on. Let me
I think it's a good one to cover. I think that it's something that we need to talk about. I don't know where I stand on it yet, because I haven't been diving into it enough to really come up with an opinion. It is not changing marriage. It's not. It's not.
It's essentially an anti-discrimination
Correct
thing. Yeah.
It's basically rules for employers. I think there are a lot of. I think you're opening a lot of really slippery slopes here, because as a small business owner, I think about things from that perspective. This is not about LGBT, LMNOP. It's about the right of the employer as well. And so here's my question. Like, I'm an employer now, and so if I hire somebody and they are terrible at their job and I decide to fire them, and Jim leaves the office fired, and on Monday he comes back as Jan, and he says that the reason he was fired was because he wanted to be Jan and I thought he was Jim, what recourse do I have to protect myself from frivolous suits and frivolous, because we've seen women pretend to be men to win all kinds of sporting events through the years. We've seen lots of things happen that prove that most people don't truly see the transgender thing, or the he wants to be a she, or dude looks like a lady, to be anything more than sex dysphoria. There's a word for it, sexual dysphoria, or just something where you're having a psychological issue determining your own sexuality, even though the DNA and the evidence is there to cement that you are either one or the other. But I would be curious as to what will constitute, how it'll play out. It says here, sex plays a necessary and undisguisable role in the decision, exactly what Title VII forbids. Well, my question is this: like, first of all, when this was written in 1964, did it mean LGBTQ LMNOP then?
That's the Supreme Court's job, to interpret the laws as standards change, is it not?
I mean, is a preacher's job to interpret the Bible as standards change, or does the Bible standards change? Is a document like the Constitution, does it change? Just because we change, does that mean that, honestly, that's the core of the conversation is. And you see a lot of churches doing this right now, and they're saying that God would be different on this subject if he wasn't antiquated, old, and was if he was woke, and God's not woke. Like, he is God. And he knew the moment that it was. I don't know. That's a great question. Yes, you're right. Their job on paper is to interpret the Constitution as standard change. My fear in that line of thinking is that standards are set by men and thus can be changed at a whim or at mob rule. And we're seeing the mob do very, very terrifying things right now. And so we have to protect the Constitution as a doctrine that stands without. I mean, were there gay people in 1964? Were there people that identified as a different sex? Well, absolutely. That's not a new problem. So just because it's become socially acceptable to the world, does that mean that the Constitution ought to change and reflect that? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. But what I do know is that this particular rule, like the Supreme Court went real careful on this. They didn't redefine marriage. They didn't redefine. They simply said, in this small little bucket right here, really an irrelevant bucket in a lot of cases when it comes to the large scheme of the LGBTQGYZOP movement, not a huge win, and therefore, I mean, I find myself not really. I don't know. I don't really feel any kind of way about it, other than what would happen to me as an employer if I fired Jim on Friday and he came back Jan on Monday and I had no recourse. And that, I think that's a legitimate concern for small business owners and big and large corporations alike as we move forward. I just got a news alert on my phone. 5 major cities are shutting down again. That's new. I know people have talked about it. Let's see. Shutting down again. Oh, just restaurants. Okay. Just restaurants. Well, that's good. See, look, headlines are a thing. Headlines are crazy, aren't they? Man, good gosh.
Oh, speaking of headlines, how about this?
Okay.
These were 2 tweets from NBC News, a little over an hour apart. I don't know if you can read those there. Do you want to read them out loud?
Let me read them quietly first. Yeah, rally for Black trans lives draws packed crowd to Brooklyn Museum Plaza. President Trump plans to rally his supporters next Saturday for the first time, but yeah, that's a joke. It's obvious there's bias in the media. I mean, for those of you that would sit there and say, well, the media is biased to the right, you're an idiot. It's not. Like, you can't go 5 feet. Every major business publication that I used to enjoy reading, Business Insider, Forbes, like all the things that CNBC Money, I mean, all the things that I used to enjoy reading as an entrepreneur, like I can hardly read now, because even money advice is being swayed in a specific slant, and it's incredibly frustrating. But look, it's 3:35. We've done a 30-minute show today. We're going to shut her down because we got a lot of stuff going on here, trying to get ready for the radio that may or may not ever happen. I'm kidding, it's going to happen. But look, we've enjoyed going over the headlines with you today. Again, everything I say and do, I hope, comes from a place of hopefully Christ-centered, I don't know, desire to be centered in his will and in his obedience in my life and in my politics and in everything else. And to be honest with you, I don't even like politics. I haven't ever spoken about them on here until recently. And it turns out to be maybe God is putting a platform in front of me so that I can be a part of some kind of a revolution. Viva la revolution. But typically, when there's political upheaval, there's racism, there's all these things. If you look back historically, what follows next is a period of revival to the church and to God. And so hopefully, as a country, that's where we're heading. That sure would be a welcomed change. And in the meantime, it is Monday. We will see you on Tuesday. That's tomorrow. Little bagpipe to take us out of here. We'll have a guest tomorrow, guest Wednesday. I don't know about Thursday, and Friday's a long way away. So in the meantime, we will see you guys. We'll be on here with Cookie tomorrow. He's got a podcast indicator. He's a good dude. We're excited to have him on. We'll talk to you guys soon. Connor, take it away.